ਸਾਸੰਗ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਇੱਕ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਅੱਜ ਐਕਸੀਬਿਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਐਮਪਾਇਰ ਆਫ ਦ ਸਿੱਖਸ ਇੱਥੇ ਖੁੱਲੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਬਰਨਾਈ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੰਡਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਾਸੰਗ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਚੈਰਿਟੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਕੱਠੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਰਾਜ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਆਰਟੀਫੈਕਟ ਸੀਗੇ, ਆਬਜੈਕਟ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ, ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਇਹ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। So in English now guys, this is absolutely amazing. Right now I am standing in Maharaja Ranjit Singh Sher Punjab Maharaja Ranjit Singh's court, as you can see behind me, and this is an exhibition called the Empire of the Sikhs, which is taking place here in Brunei and in central London, and it's absolutely amazing. It's something that you definitely got to take time out to bring your family and friends and see the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and that Khalsa Raj and what's going to happen at this particular exhibition. It will show you the start of the Raj, during the Raj and the end of the Raj. Also what happened afterwards, what happened to the artifacts, the guns, the shastar, the pictures, everything, even the grants is absolutely amazing. Satsang ji, all I can do is I can't stress enough, what's happening here is remarkable. And you know what, well done. And thank you to the organisers, all the charities and all those people that have put so much time together and dedicated so much time and effort in collecting 100 objects from the Raj to show and put on display here at this particular location. So all I want to do is, without any further ado, we're going to take you to the founders and organisers and go speak to them and show you what's on exhibition here on the Empire of the Sikhs. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੈਲਰੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਰੂਮ ਹੈਗਾ, ਮੀਟ ਐਂਡ ਗ੍ਰੀਟ ਰੂਮ ਨੂੰ ਆਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਇਹਦੇ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਲੋਕ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਐਕਸੀਬਿਸ਼ਨ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ what the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Sher Punjab is left behind. Is absolutely amazing to see how many artifacts that they've brought together, and you know what, well done to the UK and Punjab Heritage Association for bringing this together, because it's absolutely amazing what you're about to see. And what we'll do is we'll listen to the speeches of some of the people, the guest speakers here, and then we'll go into the actual gallery itself to show you some of the artifacts that are going to be on display.
It's a pleasure to open the Empire of the Sikhs exhibition for our summer program in the Brunei Gallery. On a night when our minds are on the great match in Moscow, it's appropriate that we turn to another great game that was played out in the 19th century between Russia and Great Britain, and an empire which stood between these nations. This is the third exhibition that we're organising with the United Kingdom Punjab Heritage Association. The last two, on the Golden Temple in 2011 and the First World War and Sikhs in 2014, broke all records for visitors to the Brunei Gallery. We were delighted with the response that these exhibitions received. Especially encouraging was the outreach to the wider Sikh community, including children who were able to engage in interactive activities. Most people don't know that the Sikhs once had an empire. It's important to remember history, not just as a form of romantic adulation, but also as a critical guide to understanding the past as well as the present. There is much in this exhibition that to encourage such critical reflections on the relationship between Sikhs and the British, how Ranjit Singh successfully managed a religiously diverse society. As someone who's currently writing on the legacy of the Sikh Empire for the present, I cannot but conclude without the comments of a European contemporary visiting Lahore at the time of the empire. The Austrian traveller, Baron Charles Hugel, remarked that the state established by Ranjit Singh was, quote, the most wonderful object in the world, which had been created from rather insignificant and unpromising fragments. I must say, it reminds me of the English football team at the moment. Finally, I want to thank everyone involved in making this exhibition possible. Our special thanks to Paramjit and Davinder Singh Tour as guest curators. Doubtless, they've also been supported by many volunteers in the United Kingdom Punjab Heritage Association, whose help and support I think we need to duly recognise. Special mention also needs to be made of John Hollingworth and his staff, who I know from experience as a dean in the last 6 years have worked tirelessly to make these things happen. And last but not least, the many SOAS staff, including those in the SOAS South Asia Institute and events, who have put in many hours to make this possible. It remains only for me to say that I hope you enjoy the exhibition after the talks and have a look around and come back again. And if you want to learn more about the Sikhs, their faith, their history, their culture and traditions, do not hesitate to get in touch with the colleagues at SOAS, including myself. I would now like to hand over to Amandeep Madra, OBE, co-founder of the UK PHA, to say something more about the exhibition and the wider work of his organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you everyone for coming out. And it's a difficult night to be out, and I know that many of you are anxiously awaiting us to open the door so you can get into the Sikh cultural event of the year. Or some of you may be waiting for the football, I don't know, but I've just got a couple of short things to do. So the first thing is really just to thank and acknowledge this wonderful team that's put this on. And the second thing really is just to open the doors to allow you to go in and see this fantastic show that we've put on that's going to run throughout the summer until September 23rd. Before I do that, just a couple of really quick things. I'm like that Indian uncle at the wedding, which says, just before my 5 minutes, I've got 10 minutes of other stuff to do. And so one of them is just help us get the word out, please. We are, from a news perspective, we are sandwiched between a Trump visit, the World Cup, and a possible general election. So anything you can do to get out to your networks on WhatsApp, on social media, hashtag Sikh Empire, and let the world know about what's going on. We always have a massive rush toward the end because of that, that kind of Punjabi thing about coming at the very end. So try to get people through as quickly as possible. Also, I just wanted to let you know that we've got books for sale out there, including this extraordinary book called In Pursuit of Empire. We formally launch it on Saturday with William Dalrymple in conversation with Davinder Dood. But ahead of that, you must have a look through it, and you would not be well served if you leave the exhibition today without buying that. But on to the main points I want to make. So a funny thing happens to me on occasions like this. People come up to me, 2 people have done this already today, they come up to me and they say, Aman, this is extraordinary. How do you do it? You have this big, complex, ugly job that you do. You have this big, complex family. And then you change the Sikh cultural landscape with these wonderful exhibitions or books or publishing ventures. And I say, stop, uncle, auntie, Banji, whatever. I say, stop. It's not me. It's this team. And then they put their hand on my shoulder and they say, oh, Aman, you're so humble as well. But it's true. It's not me. It is this wonderful team. I just happen to be the bloke with the tie that gets in the front and says a few things. So I do want to call out the team that's behind this. Now, you've met a lot of them already, the volunteers that have been seeing you through, getting you here. I want to pay tribute to them. I couldn't name them all. We'd run out of time. But the photographers are all volunteers, the folks seeing you through. The tour guides that will be taking you and your families around the exhibition during the summer, if you want to do that, are volunteers as well. I want to thank the musicians who saw you in, and I want to join Gurharbal in also paying tribute to the team here at SOAS, so John Hollingworth's team, that have really worked with us, not just in this exhibition, but previous exhibitions, to put this show on. So to John, to Alan, to Mac and Robin are working tirelessly today. I just want to say thank you. But there is a core team that's behind this, a core curatorial team. I just want to call them out. Again, Davinder Dood, who's been a constant presence in the design of this exhibition and then in the actual implementation of it as well. Amandeep Madra, who's going to be leading on the very popular tours that will take place. Dharanjit, who's doing photography tonight. Sukhdeep Joda for translations. Jasdeep Rahal for loans and also for being consistently the world's most best-dressed man in Akfa. Amrik Singh Bamra again for translations, and our designer who's just done a stunning job downstairs, who's got the most designery name you could possibly imagine. His name is Paul Smith. But I want to just finish with our core team, with the three people that have really worked the hardest on this and most on this over the last year or so. So to Dr., and I'm going to use your name, Dr. Bikram Singh Brar, who's organised this launch event tonight, who's been working on the permissions, working on the logistics, really working on bringing this exhibition together. For Harbaksh Garewal, who once again joins us on another big show for us on PR and media. And for a small organisation, you know, it's much more than those things, of course. It's a million other things aside from that. So I just want to pay tribute to those. But most of all, I want to call out the one person for which all of us know that we're here and who's really been the driving force for this exhibition. In fact, most of the work that we do. And he is an extraordinary force of nature. He's this kind of interplanetary force that we all circulate around. It's only because of him and his vision and his drive that we are here. You know who he is. And I could talk about him in terms of his achievements, in terms of the 5 books that he's co-authored, the 3 exhibitions that he's put on, the publishing house that he's founded and he's now driven to producing brilliant things, the partnerships that he's created, the generation that he's inspired, the partnerships he's built with institutions. But I just wanted to say a few personal words to my friend Paramjit, wherever he happens to be right now. I've known him for 25 years. He's my very best friend, but he's more than a friend. He's a mentor, he's a guide, he's a teacher, trainer. He's taught me so much about this institution, about how to really put Sikh heritage on the map. He's taught me how to doggedly deliver a vision. He's taught me never to let practicalities like money or time get in the way of delivering anything. But most of all, what he does is he raises the bar on quality, and you can see that today in the exhibition. And he does all of that in the most extraordinarily humble way possible, and he never takes any credit. So please join your hands and pay tribute to Paramjit Singh wherever he is today. We always said over the last 20 years I've known Paramjit, we've always said at one point we're going to have this big Punjabi fallout, right? Because all friends have that, right? They have that fallout, they don't talk to each other ever again, the families never talk to each other again, and we've never done it. I've got a funny feeling me doing that today will probably catalyse that particular argument, but there we go, let's see what happens. I just want to pay tribute also, I just want to acknowledge the lenders that have loaned today. You're going to go downstairs in a minute and you're going to see some wonderful objects. And some of them have come from a variety of national collections that I just want to call out. So 2 very important, beautiful objects from Her Majesty the Queen as part of the Royal Collection. Our friends at the National Army Museum are characteristically generous with loaning to us. Thank you to them. Our friends at the British Library, the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is the repository of one of the finest collections of Sikh art in this country, and of course this institution itself, the School of Oriental and African Studies. Private collectors have also loaned very generously, and the wonderful thing about private collections is this is the only time you're going to get to see them because they're just not on public display or publicly available, sadly. So to the Garam collection, to our friend Sukhbir Singh Kanth in Canada, to the Bart family, Anne-Marie Barraclough, and a number of private collectors who chose to remain anonymous. We say thank you to them, and I think when you see the objects yourself, you will say this. You will say the same. Now, one thing you will see as a consistent theme throughout the show is the Tour collection, and I just want to spend a few minutes just acknowledging Devinder Tour, who has very, very skillfully, very generously, and very carefully curated what is arguably, well, more than just arguably, I would say authoritatively, the very best private collection of Sikh art in the world. And it's more than just a collection of Sikh art. It's a collection that's enhanced by really very fine scholarship, and that is available. If you look in the book, In Pursuit of Empire, which is available now, you will see that it's not just a collection of artifacts. There's a whole scholarship in terms of understanding and a greater depth of understanding to those objects. But it's even more than that, because beyond that, he's also very generous in loaning to organisations such as us. We've had the very great privilege of being able to present items from the Dur collection at 2 of our previous shows, and now once again we have them here today. So to Devinder I say thank you, and I'm sure many of you will join me in thanking him for that. But finally, if I could just turn to donors and sponsors, people that have put their hands in their pocket and made this happen. Our previous show was grant funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. This one, quite gratifyingly, wasn't. We had a small, very well-timed grant from the HLF, but the bulk of it has really come from the community. It's been funded by people, many of the people that are in this room today. 3 of our richest donors actually chose to remain anonymous, and there's nothing more Sikh than that, I don't think. But if I could just call out just some of the others that donated: Tony Jima, the Joda family, the Rao family, Hardeep and Baldeep Tamana. Clan Madra was very generous as ever, Mandeep Kakkar, but also organisations such as the Avenir Registrars, the Genomic Clinic, once again Stark Oberoi solicitors who've sponsored a number of our shows, and then also our supporters, the Sikh Heritage Museum of Canada, and as ever, like this consistent theme in all of our work, the Punjab Restaurant, who very generously, as ever, come out to support our events and feed people as they come through. So thank you very much to Amrit Maan, to Seethal Singh Maan, and the Punjab Restaurant in Covent Garden. But also other donors as well. If I just make a final point about donors. There are many donors that gave as much as they could, either online or offline. And we thank them. There are many of those donors that are actually in this room right now, but you don't know that you're a donor, but you will be by the end of this show. So look out there. If that's how you want your heritage to be displayed, if that's something that inspires you and you say, yeah, we want to be back here in 2 or 3 years' time with another show, and we've got some fantastic ideas that we want to deliver, then put your hands in your pockets and donate to us. Come and find me, come and find Balamjeet, come and find any of the volunteers, and we will happily relieve you of your guilt. Now, Balamjeet always reminds me, actually, he says that the average British family spends £350 a year on biscuits. So there's the guide. We want your biscuit money. Okay? So think about that. And I know you will, because Sikhs have been characteristically very generous throughout our whole 20-year career. So with that, and with the clock ticking, we're 20 minutes to 7, please join me in entering the empire of the Sikhs.
With me now is the chairman of the UK and Punjab Heritage Association, and one of the many charities that has brought this great exhibition to us, the Sikhs, Empire of the Sikhs. And I want to talk to Amandeep Singh, who's the chair, and I also want to get him, what inspired you to do something like this? Because this is absolutely remarkable, and people watching right now, they're in for a massive treat, because I've had a bit of a tour, but I want you to tell us what inspired you and all these charities to come together to bring this magnificent piece of exhibition to the Sangat.
Well, thank you very much for saying that, and I'm glad you've enjoyed it, and I'm sure other people that will come here will enjoy it and be amazed by it, just as you have. Look, this is the great story of the Sikhs, and we absolutely have to tell it. It's one of the most visually powerful stories. You've just got a glimpse of it in the last few minutes that you've been here today. So it just seems like the most obvious story to tell. And actually, we're really privileged in the UK, because much of the treasury of the Sikh courts, the rich treasury of Ranjit Singh, ended up in the UK after the annexation of the Punjab to Great Britain. So we've really drawn on many of those objects from national collections, but also from private collections as well, and brought all of that together in one place. It's the first time in 20 years that we've had such a rich display of Sikh art, Sikh courtly arts on display free in London. So I'd really encourage all of your viewers to come out and see the exhibition while it's on.
I think you have no problem with viewers coming out to this. I can assure you that this is absolutely amazing stuff, right? But just tell the Sangha, because obviously we can't show many of the collections on TV due to rights. However, what could you tell the Sangha? How many artifacts or objects you have at this particular exhibition, and how many from various sources they came from?
Yeah, so we have well over 100 objects on display, but also on the boards as well. We've reproduced a lot of imagery that otherwise completely inaccessible to people, to tell that whole story from the beginning of the Sikh kingdoms right the way through to the end of it. And so some of those objects have been drawn from national collections which are very well known, the Victoria and Albert Museum, which acts as a repository for some of the finer parts of the treasury of the Sikh kingdoms, but also from the royal collection as well. So we worked really hard to get a loan from, which is directly from the Queen, actually, from Her Majesty the Queen, which is a couple of objects which I think are absolutely stand out objects, and they're they're emotionally very powerful objects for Sikhs, but also objects from the National Army Museum, from this university as well, from the School of Oriental and African Studies, as well as private collectors, both named and unnamed.
Also, but some of the objects that you have on display here, what did that include? So what do you have here for the Sangha that they will be able to get a glimpse of and actually have darshan of?
So when you first come in, what you're faced with, what you encounter is a field gun, a howitzer from Ranjit Singh's Khalsa army. It's an awesome piece of warfare, but it's also a beautiful piece of art. As then when you come into the gallery, there are sort of the glittering objects of war, of armory, of our kind of military heritage, damascened and watered jakkars, as well as swords. And just one of the most beautiful objects, I think, is the golden shield of General Hari Singh Nalwa. All along the walls we've got some beautiful miniature paintings, and because most of them do come from private collections, they've really not been on display before. So for most people it's the very first time that you see it. In the center of the exhibition, we've recreated the Lahore Darbar, the court of Ranjit Singh, and within that are some of the richest objects that we have, including and just which I think most people will find absolutely fascinating, the original bazuband, the armlet that was worn by Ranjit Singh, within which we have a copy of the Kohinoor stone, the Kohinoor diamond. So you can actually see the sheer size and the opulence of the diamond and the jewelry that he would have worn. And surrounding that are other fabulous pieces of Sikh art, again on display for the first time.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'm sure the Sangha are going to be dying to come out to see this, because once we show a glimpse of today, which you're going to give us a tour of in a few moments anyway, but for long term, how can people access this particular exhibition? So where can they go for more information? That's one. Number two, are there going to be any guided tours? Because we were lucky enough to Satsangaji to actually come here today and get a guided tour by Paiji here, and it was mind-blowing. But for the Sangha, will there be chances for like Gurdwara bookings or university Sikh organisations coming down together, Sikh schools coming down? Because this is an absolute must to see a part of our heritage. You know, Maharaja Ranjit Singh's reign and that Khalsa Empire, and these are artifacts that belong to that time, is absolutely amazing. It's mind-blowing for me, but I'm sure for the Sangha too. Where can they get this information from? What can they do for guided tours?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm. I hope that's exactly the reaction that we want to see from people. So look, we are open every day except Mondays. So you can come any day. Like, we're open right the way through the weekend. but every day except for Mondays. We open on July the 12th. We run until September the 23rd. I would encourage you not to leave it to the last minute. This is our third exhibition in this particular space, and we do tend to have this big rush toward the end. So please come early. It's on at a great time. The kids are off on school holidays. You've got relatives visiting. This is a great opportunity to come down to a free exhibition. It's on at the Brunei Gallery, which is part of the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies on Russell Square, just behind the British Museum. You can find out all of these details on our website, which is empireofthesikhs.com. Or you can go onto our Facebook page, which is GT1588, and similarly on Twitter on GT1588 as well. And so you've got all of the details there. Now, you asked about guided tours, and it's actually something that we've been doing a lot of in all of our work, because this is not just about putting things on display, but it's also about helping people access that heritage. So we will be running English language guided tours throughout the weekend, and also late night on a Thursday as well for people working in the city. But we also have some fantastic volunteers who are trained up and ready to do Punjabi language tours as well, and we can do them really as groups want to come down. We intend to run some at the weekends, and again on our website you've got all of the details there. But if it is a Gurdwara group that's kind enough to be able to come down to the exhibition, then let us know in advance. If you go onto the website, there's an email address right there. Let us know when you're coming, and we'll gladly meet you here with a tour guide that can take you through some of these objects, answer questions, but also learn from people as well, because we often find when we do these, we learn so much from people because of the knowledge that they have about this fantastic part of Sikh history.
That's excellent. I'm sure the details will be on the bottom of the screen, so you can find out from the website and more details. One final question just before we actually go on the actual tour itself. What inspired you, and what's the vision behind this exhibition today?
Well, I've been inspired about this for over 20 years now. I've always been interested in the Sikh kingdoms. In fact, in 1999, when the Victoria and Albert Museum did its show, The Arts of the Sikh Kingdoms, that was the first time that my hobby became very professional, and I was working with the V&A to help them really kind of interpret their materials. And they encouraged us, myself and Paramjeet, to publish, and then the publishing turned into multiple books, and it turned into a publishing house, and it turned into these exhibitions. So this has been running deep in my veins for many, many years. In terms of where this is going, look, this is our third exhibition in 8 years. We're very likely to come back here again in the not too distant future. We've got a exhibition that's in planning at the moment for a couple of years' time, which is going to be the other great story of the Sikhs, which is the story of Guru Nanak and the legacy that he left, both spiritual and tangible, in this world.
I can't wait for that either. This is absolutely amazing. ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਮਾੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿ ਦਵਾਂ because it's important where we said so much in English in ਪੰਜਾਬੀ। ਮੈਂ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਅਪਾਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਹ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੇਰੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਮੌਜੂਦੇ ਕਿਰਪਾਨਾਂ ਸੀ, ਖੰਡੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਤੀਰ ਸੀਗੇ, ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ, ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। 100 ਤੋਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਬਜੈਕਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਓ, ਆਪ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇਖਿਓ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਦੇਖਿਓ ਕਿ ਦਰਬਾਰ, ਲਾਹੌਰ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਦਾ ਸੀਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇਸ ਐਬਸੋਲੂਟਲੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਫੌਜਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੇ, ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਸੀਗੀ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਦੂਰ ਸੋਚ ਸੀਗੀ, ਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਰਾਜ, ਉਹ ਲੈਗੇਸੀ। ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਇਓ। ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਭਾਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਆਖਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ 2-3 ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਣ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਣ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੀ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦਾ। ਕਾਫੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੱਦ ਤੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ, ਆਬਜੈਕਟਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿਖਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ਿੰਗ ਰਾਈਟ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਉਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ, ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਿਰਪਾਲਤਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ, ਸਾਂਝਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ, ਸਾਥੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪ ਆ ਕੇ ਦੇਖਿਓ। ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋਗੇ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ। ਐਂਡ ਵਾਂਸ ਅਗੇਨ ਫਰਮ ਵਾਟ ਡੇਟਸ?
Opens on July the 12th and runs until September 23rd.
There you go. July the 12th to 23rd of September. ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ some of the objects that you're going to see in today's exhibition. ਆਓ ਭਾਓ ਜੀ.
Well, welcome to the Brunei Gallery. The gallery is the third time we've been here as an organisation, and we're putting on a show called the Empire of the Sikhs. And as you enter it, one of the sort of painted pieces that you'll see is here on my left-hand side. And what it is it's a blow-up of a Indian miniature painting. So we often hear about Indian miniatures, and I often find that until you sort of blow them up to this kind of size, do you really see the detail that's in there, but also the skill of those artists. Things that are lost sometimes, such as the artillery drills that are going on in the top right-hand corner, but you can see them very clearly when we put it up to this size. But actually the main part of the painting is this just wonderful rendition of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and his very cosmopolitan court of men that governed the Punjab. Everyone from Akali Nahangs, like the infamous Akali Fulla Singh, right the way through to his own sons, and sitting right at the front, Bairam Singh, a spiritual advisor and a very religious man. So behind me is the awesome and beautiful field gun of the Sikhs. It is beautiful. I mean, in many respects, it represents the very height of craftsmanship at the time of the Sikh kingdoms. You can see sort of beautiful brass inlay work and carving, as well as obviously the woodwork. But it's much more than that. It's also the very height of military artillery power of the time. It's a gun, which means it moves, and it's very maneuverable. It was pulled by horses to be put into position, and then positioned by gunners. Often the gunners were Muslims or Hindus under the command of either a Sikh commander or even an American commander, because Ranjit Singh's colonel of artillery was an American from Wisconsin, Alexander Gardner. This particular gun, which when you look at the detail on it, you'll see the intricacy of it, was just one of 400 that Ranjit Singh would have had, or the Maharajas would have had, and that these are the ones that faced the British during the Anglo-Sikh Wars in 1848. So just imagine 400 of these lined up, glistening in the sun, firing cannon and grape shot to the enemy. As we all know, though, the Sikh Wars were lost, and these guns were captured by the British. Great play was made of them. They were paraded in Calcutta, the then imperial capital, as trophies of war. Some of them, sadly, were melted down to make statues of the very men that commanded the British to victory. And some of the better ones, some of the more artistic ones, were taken back to Britain as trophies of war. And this one and its mirror image, if you like, were taken to the stately home of General Gough, who had commanded the British forces in the Second Anglo-Sikh War, and they stood outside his stately home in Ireland for many years, until long after his death, when this one was finally moved to collectors. It was restored, and now it's back again in Sikh hands, and we're very, very proud and very privileged to be able to display this here, and we really do hope that many Sikhs take this opportunity. It's a very rare opportunity to come and see a real piece of Sikh courtly art and a piece of Sikh history. Well, the beautiful object behind me here is a golden shield that it's really very, very striking indeed. It just kind of pops out from the display cabinet, and you can see that not only is it gold, but it's also embossed with jewels as well. So it clearly belongs to someone of immense stature during the time of the Sikh kingdoms. And we know it's Sikh because very uniquely it has an inscription on it. And there's an inscription on its top rim, which you can just see behind the gold leaf, with a date and a name. And it says, Akal Sahai, may the immortal protect, Hari Singh, and it's dated 1824. So that's right. Now there's only one Hari Singh that would be worthy of an object of this kind of grandeur, and that is clearly General Hari Singh Nalwa, Maharaja Ranjit Singh's most trusted military commander and the most feared of the military commanders of the Khalsa army of that period. Hari Singh died just before the Maharaja died. caused the Maharaja great grief and really ended the sort of military expansion of the Sikh period. But to have this shield on display is just really wonderful for us. It's something that was, again, bought by a private collector. It's in Sikh hands, and we're really grateful and really honoured to have that on display. And it joins many other objects from the period of the Sikh Raj that we're displaying here at the Brunei Gallery over the summer. So we devote quite a large part of the exhibition to a section that we call the Lion's Farangis. Farangis is a reference, obviously, to foreigners, and the lion is a reference to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Sher-e Punjab, the lion of the Punjab. And they were really critical to Ranjit Singh's governance of a very cosmopolitan country. Few people realize that the Punjab that Ranjit Singh governed, which was from Multan all the way to Kashmir, up to Peshawar in the north, was a majority Muslim country. About 60% Muslims, maybe about 30% Hindus, and a very small percentage of Sikhs. But he also governed that not with a Sikh government, but with a very cosmopolitan government, with men from about 100 men from about 19 different nations around the world. And we're often very aware of the French and Italian generals, the ex-Napoleonic generals that left service in France and sold their skills to Eastern Maharajas. But in addition to them, there were Brits, there were Spaniards, there were Central Asians, there were even a couple of Americans that rose to quite high rank in Ranjit Singh's court. And the map beside me here just gives some indication of the nations that these men came from. And they brought with them extraordinary skills that weren't evident in the Sikh kingdoms, mainly military skills of one form or another. So real intelligence to the Sikh armies on how to best equip themselves for the inevitable fight that was going to happen with either the British coming in from the south or the French coming in with the Russians from the north. So Ranjit Singh, in that respect, had immense foresight in being able to gather intelligence from this large group of Europeans and even North Americans that he brought in with him. The Europeans that were in the Sikh courts are often thought of in very simple terms as simply just mercenaries that fought on the side of the Sikhs, but they were much more than that. The Maharaja was insistent, in fact made it a condition of them being employed by the very wealthy Sikh courts for them to grow beards, to abstain from beef, to abstain from smoking, to pledge to fight against their home nation if it meant it in order to protect the Punjab. They were also, it was also demanded of them that they marry locally, and that local marriage was something that was selected by the Sikh Maharajas, the Maharaja himself. And what that meant was that these men, from whether they're from France or Spain or Italy or America, remained loyal to the Sikhs because they had more than just a salary coming to them. They had, in many cases, a family, as you can see behind me right now. They also, interestingly, the men were also slightly worried that the women that had been selected from them, who often came from very sort of noble families of the Punjab, were actually far more loyal to the Maharaja than they were to them, and so they were actually acting as spies. Nevertheless, they maintained very sort of successful families, and many of these families, after the fall of the Sikh kingdoms, were taken back to their European countries of origin of the men themselves.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਭਾਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ। What did you make of that great exhibition?
It's a phenomenal exhibition. I think we Sikhs forget what a rich cultural history we have, and it's important that we remind ourselves of it and the role that we've played in history. And it's important to know where we come from, and that informs where we head to. So I think it's great, and it follows on wonderfully well from the last two exhibitions as well. I would encourage everybody to come.
The exhibition is absolutely fantastic. I think the team have done such an amazing job of curating it so artistically, so creatively, such a treasure chest of information, knowledge that's never been seen before.
I think this is a fantastic effort to bring all the heritage and all the artifacts which perhaps we would never had a chance to see before. But not only one can learn from this exhibition about the history, which again need to be told to sort of in all generations to come. I really sort of enjoyed this exhibition.
Well, I think it's pretty impressive. I've just spoken to the curator and collector. It was so inspiring to talk to him, and wonderful collection. I love the photographs and, of course, the canon. Absolutely magnificent.
I'm very impressed by it, and I'm particularly impressed by the text. It's one thing to have a picture or an object, but it's quite another to tell a story, to explain where it fits in. And I think you've done that brilliantly. The text, whoever did the text, really does deserve a very big pat on the back. And apart from that, it's an excellent display of the whole history of the Sikhs. Of course, there was a history of the Sikhs before Ranjit Singh, but particularly looking at the empire of the Sikhs, it brings it home to people, explains to people what it's about, and makes the point how important the Sikhs are to us, to our British history. Well done, that's all I can say.
Tremendous. What I can say, and something new. Yeah.
It was absolutely wonderful. It was really, really interesting. We came here as a family to kind of see a painting that used to belong to my mother, but there was so many more other interesting things to look up. Absolutely fabulous, and I'm going to tell all my friends about it and make sure they come.
Empires of the Sikh is a great exhibition and a great opportunity for students of SOAS to discover a great empire, what was a great empire, and a great region with so many traditions and inspiration for everyone.
I think it's a fantastic exhibition. I want to thank all the organisers for putting this a brilliant exhibition together. Yeah, it's a great joy to see our heritage on display.
And I particularly loved the cannon. I thought, wow, I'd like that in my living room.
I thought it was luxurious and beautiful and gorgeous, and I'm just so excited to have been invited. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, Arnaud Delesse couldn't make it. He got stuck in Paris. But he sold the 2 photographs of the Sikh bodyguards about 6 years ago to the Sikh community, and they're very rare. They're in beautiful condition, and I'm very happy that they're in the right place.
What was your favourite artifact you found today?
I think the armour, because I used to work for Howard Ricketts, who specialised in Indo-Islamic and European works of art, and obviously arms and armour, and they're in the most gorgeous condition. They're stunning.
Visually, it's stunning. Aesthetically, as you walk in through past the panel behind you, you've got the gilt artillery piece. With the Maharaja Ranjit Singh behind, absolutely stunning. And if you're interested in Anglo-Sikh wars, that cannon in private hands, fantastic, really exciting start. And when you get into the rest of the exhibition, it doesn't let you down.
fascinating. I don't know much about Sikhism or the empire, but I've really enjoyed what I've seen, and it's very interesting seeing all the exhibits. It's very well put together, and it's very informative.
Which particular exhibit got your attention the most?
I like the cannon. I like this fretwork panel behind us, which I may have had a part in. And I like all the photographs.
Sorry?
Oh, I just like everything to do with India, and again, I don't know that much, which is why it's been very educational. And yeah, I have an affinity with India somehow. So.
Well, I like some of the artifacts that they've got on display. Like swords from the period, coins from the period. A lot of things which have been lost or scattered, and they've managed to sort of bring things back together and make it accessible.
The exhibition today left me starstruck, in awe. As soon as you walk through the doors, there's a massive surprise, and it's just another one of those exhibitions by UK Punjab Heritage Association that really humanises our culture. So, for example, the earrings of Maharani Jind that you see, they make you realise that she was a real person, and you always hear stories about these people and the amazing battles that they fought as the Sikh army. But when you actually see the artifacts that go behind it, it makes you realise that all of this was real, and that's our heritage, and we're owning our own history.
ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਜੀ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੈਚੁਰਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੀਆਂ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕੇ ਰੱਖੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ। ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਫਿਰ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਸੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਓਵਰਆਲ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ।
Being Indian, I love the jewellery collection. What woman wouldn't? And also learning with Amandeep about the history of it. That's what I really enjoyed.
Absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I could recommend it for young people to come along. They need to know our history. They need to know where we originate from and what it's all about. Because half of our generation, they're not aware of our surroundings, what's available to them. And with this exhibition, it tells you everything. Thank you.
I recommend it as well, and I agree with everything that she said. It's absolutely brilliant, well worth a visit.
I like it when they put everything on display, and I like all the old things, and I like everything that is very interesting. My favourite bit was the cannon, and it was very big, and I didn't really know some things, and then I just learnt what they were.
My favourite bit was the cannon too. It was very huge. I like the bucket near the back of the cannon.
Amazing exhibition. Some of the artifacts that they have there, the swords, the inscriptions on the swords actually tell a lot. And some of my research that I'm going into, it was just, for me, it was very valuable. And I came all the way from Toronto just for it, so yeah, amazing.
Was there any particular artifact that drew your attention?
I think Ranjit Singh's sword, which is incredible to see that, one of the collection items here is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's sword. It actually has Gurbani written on the handle. Deg teg jag mein do chale, raak aak mein aur mein dale. It's quite a very powerful line from Dasam Guru Granth Sahib. And for me, I thought that really touched me, and I was like, oh, that's incredible to see in person.
ਸਾਸਾਂ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਪਾਰਕ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਆਹ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। You saw it for yourself. What an amazing exhibition it was. You heard the people that came out the first night and the massive feedback they've got back. It was absolutely speechless on how many artifacts that were there, over 100 in total here at the Brunei Gallery in central London. And you know what, if you're living in the UK, especially people from outside of the UK came down to see this exhibition and seen all these artifacts from the Raj of Sher Punjab Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And you know what, I would thank once again to the people that organised this, by Amandeep Singh, Paramjit Singh, Dunda Singh Toor, and all these different charities that are supported, and all the donors that helped to make it possible, because they brought our history to life. And when you see it firsthand, it takes you there to the Raj, or how Maharaja Ranjit Singh conducted the Raj, how he brought everyone together, the harmonious period that the Sikhs had, and what a beautiful time the Sikhs had at that time. And you know what, this ਇਹੀ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਇਹ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਵਾ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ, ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆਇਓ। ਇੱਥੇ ਬਰਨਾਈ ਗੈਲਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਲੰਡਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਲੰਡਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆਇਓ। फ्री एडमिशन है, अपने परिवारों के नाल, साथियों नाल गुरुद्वारे बुक करके कोचां लैके आओ। तो जरूर आप देखो कि इत्थे महाराजा रणजीत सिंह दे शास्त्र दिसणगे, सरदार हरी सिंह नलवे दे उन्हां दे शास्त्र दिसणगे, पेंटिंग्स, एक किरपान हैगी आ जिथों महाराजा रणजीत सिंह दे परिवार तो आ, जिहदे विच गुरु नानक देव जी लैके गुरु गोबिंद सिंह महाराज जी इनक्रिप्शन उन्हां ते लिखी हैगी आ, उन्हां दी तस्वीरां लिखियां उस किरपान दे विच। बहुत वधिया समान देखूगा तुहानूं मिलण वास्ते इत्थे, ते मैं तुहानूं बेनती करूँगा जरूर आके कृपालता करन इत्थे आयो ते जरूर देख के जाओ। ये मिस ना करो अपॉर्चुनिटी फ्रॉम द 12th of July all the way to the 23rd of September. So please make the effort to come and learn about our rich heritage and that awesome din that Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the Khalsa Fauja gave to the Panth back in that Raj. So ithu main kehna chahunda, once again thank you to all the organisers, and absolutely fantastic exhibition. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.